I'm Rosalind Lastly, and this is my story about when my world turned upside down. In 2014, I consider that year of my life my fiery furnace, where it just seemed like it was one bad thing after another, and when I felt like I couldn't possibly endure one more thing, something else happened. In January of that year, we learned one of our children was being abused at school. In March, I had a really bad falling out with my dad and didn't talk to him for many years. In July, I miscarried a baby. In October, I had to have surgery because of the miscarriage. We struggled with secondary infertility, and then in December, I had a really bad accident and broke my back. We had gone sledding just a couple days after Christmas, and my daughter was on the sled with me, and as we went down the hill, we started to go sideways. My husband was running behind us, screaming for us to get off the sled, and I didn't think I had enough strength to get myself and my daughter off the sled safely. So I put my feet down to try and slow us down, and when I did, my boot hit a rut and it spun our sled and I went down backwards. And so when we went down off the side of the hill, we slammed into a tree. My body took all of the impact and my daughter just bounced off the front. And I ended up face down in the snow and I couldn't breathe. I was in the hospital for a week during my injury, and even in that time, I realized how much I had tried to control my circumstances. It's funny because I've always said that God's in control of my life and that He's the one that leads me, but it's until I am no longer in control I realize how untrue that was. I just kept saying, as long as I can get out by New Year's Eve, then I'll be fine, because I was worried about my deductible starting over. We'd already had so many medical expenses that past year from losing the baby and then having to have surgery, that now my accident was a huge thing. And I thought, well, if I can just get out of the hospital, then we won't have this huge bill, and then we can still make ends meet, and I can go back to work and it'll be fine. But I was hurt far too badly to make that happen. I broke my right shoulder. I had 4 vertebrae that burst in my spine, and then I broke my ribs all the way down. And so I had to have an epidural in the hospital to help me breathe. And it was when they came to take the epidural out, they told me that I was just a few minutes away from being intubated because I was having such a hard time breathing. They were afraid to do surgery because the way that my spine was exploded, it would cause more harm to try and go in and fix it than to just leave it and let it heal naturally. So I have a pretty bad curve in my spine and constant pain. I'm in pain all the time. Sometimes it's hard to believe that that actually happened. There's days where I struggle to be able to get out of bed because my body hurts so bad. And then there's days where I'm grateful for the pain because I can still feel. It was in that time in my life that I realized that God is not absent in suffering. A lot of times people wonder, where is God when all these tragedies happen? And I don't come from a family where there's a lot of believers, and so I felt very much under the spotlight that people were waiting to see how I was going to handle all these tragedies. It felt very much like if I didn't handle it with grace, I was going to discredit the Lord. But when you're broken in every sense of the word, if you're broken spiritually and emotionally and physically, and you have nothing left to rely on, sometimes people wonder, how can you still praise God? And it was in that time and in the midst of such immense suffering that His suffering was real to me. God bore my emotional pain on the cross when He took His sins, or took my sins on His body. The Lord's body was broken when they nailed Him to the cross for me. And so in that time where my world was upside down, I finally understood what Christ did just because He loved me. During that time, I had literally no control over anything in my life. I couldn't protect my children. I couldn't save that baby I wanted so badly. I couldn't heal my body. I couldn't even take myself to the bathroom. And it was in that time where I realized that I had nothing left but to let God be in control of absolutely everything, that my faith was real. That surrender came from complete emotional and physical brokenness. There were times that I would sit up late at night because I was in so much pain that I couldn't sleep, and I would just cry and think, Lord, what do you want from me? Like, what is it that you're wanting me to give to you? What do I have left to learn? when I didn't think I could possibly be any more broken than I was, and then I hit a tree. In the end, and in hindsight, I realized all he said was, trust me, just trust me. Trust me to help your bills be paid when you haven't worked in months because your body is broken. Trust me to heal your body and your heart from the loss of your child. Trust me to bring justice to your family for the person that harmed your kid. And trust me to even restore the relationship with your dad. And so looking forward a few years later, my daughter that was on the sled with me when it happened, and my daughter who was harmed by the teacher in her life, she said, Mom, when you went through all of that, I watched God grow your faith. And I can't think of a more important thing to come from when your world being turned upside down, is that my kids saw God be real in our lives and saw when we had nothing left but to cling to him. And it wasn't because I handled it gracefully, and it wasn't because I prayed beautiful prayers. It was because I surrendered to him and I had nothing left but to rely on him, and he was real.